I'd like to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. Peace and safety to the hopefully elect, all the sincere. Akim out there pushing Heavenly Father's word out of a pure heart and sincerity and in truth. And for everybody who don't know Yahweh, that's the name of the Heavenly Father, who the world ignorantly calls God and Yahweh Shai. That's the name of the only begotten Son, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. And in this edition, I'm going to go into the book of Revelation, chapter 14, and give you the biblical interpretation of what this is referring to. So, without further ado, this is Revelation chapter 12 and verse 14. And it reads, "And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished for a times and a half time from the face of the serpent." Now, in this video, I'm going to show you who the woman is. We all know the woman is referring to Israel, basically. I'm going to show you what those wings of a great eagle is referring to. And the main point I want to show you is what that wilderness and that place and the woman being nourished for that time and a half time. Basically break it down precept upon precept and give you the edification on what this is referring to, because you have a private interpretation that's taught amongst the One West Old Covenant Israelite cults, that this is referring to America. Okay, so the first precept I want to get is in the book of Luke, chapter 17, to show you how the woman was given great wings, those wings of a great eagle, and show you how she flew into the wilderness, into the place where she was nourished. So this is the book of Luke. Luke chapter 17. And I'm going to start at verse 34. Luke 17:34, it says, "I tell you, in that night there shall be 2 men in one bed. The one shall be taken, and the other shall be left." Now I want to show you this in basically in the easy English, and show you how they're going to be taken. And then I'm going to show you as I read on where they're going to be taken at. All right, show you that place. So this is Luke 17:34 in the easy English. And it says, "I tell you this, at that time 2 men shall be sleeping in bed at night. The angels will take one of them, and they will leave the other one behind. 2 women will be working together in the same place. The angels will take one of them, and they will leave the other one behind." So that's symbolizing that those wings of a great eagle. All right, that's symbolizing the woman. Basically, when it says when she flew into her place, this is what this is referring to. And I'm going to show you as I read on. So let's go back to the KJV and pick up at verse 36. It says 2 men, 2 men shall be in the field, and one shall be taken. And we know how they're going to be taken, by the angels. And the other left. Verse 37. "And they answered and said unto him, Where, Lord? And he said unto them, Wheresoever the body is, thither will the eagles be gathered. Now I'm going to show you that those bodies is referring to dead bodies. So now let me get another precept in the book of Matthew, chapter 24 and verse 28. And it says, for whatsoever the carcass is, all right, so those bodies that the Lord was referring to is referring to dead bodies, carcass. So it says, for whatsoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered. There will the eagles be gathered. All right, referring to that place, all right, where the woman was nourished. And that woman is basically referring to the elect. All right, as we read in Luke 17, one shall be taken and the other one shall be left. And I'm going to show you that as I read on. So let's see. Let's get another precept to prove that point about those wings of a great eagle. Let's see, in the book of Psalms. The book of Psalms, chapter 18, and verse 10. And it says, and he rode upon a cherub, an angel, and did fly, yea, he did fly upon the wings of the wind. Okay, so now when you go back to the book of Revelations, chapter 12 and verse 14, and it says, and to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle. All right, 2 wings of a great eagle. Salakia. So it says, and to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she did fly, that she might fly. All right, and I just showed you in the book of Psalms, chapter 18, verse 10, all right, what those wings and those wings is referring to. All right, that's how the Lord did fly, and that's the same way the woman did fly. Like we read in Luke 17, the angels, that's how they're going to be taken. Okay, so it says, into the wilderness, into her place where she is nourished. So now I'm going to show you what that place is referring to. Okay, like I said, the private interpretation is that it's referring to America. It's referring to the whole nation of Israel. All right, referring to that woman. And when it talks about the wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, that wilderness or that place where she's nourished, according to the private interpretation, is referring to America. All right, and I'm going to show you that this is a prophecy that haven't been fulfilled yet. Okay, so let's get into it and show you where that place is referring to. So I'm going to go to the book of Ezekiel. The book of Ezekiel. The book of Ezekiel, chapter 39. And I'm going to pick up at verse 17. So this is Ezekiel chapter 39. And I'm going to start at verse 17 to show you where that place is referring to. All right, remember Yahushua, when the disciples, the apostles, asked the Lord, where are these people being taken? He said, wheresoever the eagles are, that's where the carcasses is going to be gathered. Okay, the dead bodies. So this is Ezekiel chapter 39. I'm going to start at verse 4 and jump down to verse 17. So this is verse 4. It says, thou shalt fall upon the mountains of Israel, thou and all thy bands, and the people that is with thee, referring to Gog and Magog, referring to the nations, because you have another private interpretation that Gog and Magog is referring to the Russians. All right, that's not biblical. All right, the biblical interpretation of what Gog and Magog is referring to the nations, man. Starting with the nation of Esau and the other nations gathered together, and I'll show you that as we read on. So it says, "Thou shalt fall upon the mountain of Israel, thou and all thy bands, and the people that is with thee, I will give thee into the ravenous birds, of every sort, and to the beasts of the field to be devoured," referring to those carcasses, those bodies. Okay, so now let's jump down to verse 17. This is verse 17, and it says, "Thou son of man, thus saith the Lord power, speak unto every feathered fowl, and to every beast of the field, assemble yourselves and come together, and come gather yourselves on every side to my sacrifice that I do sacrifice for you, even a great sacrifice upon the mountains of Israel, that ye may eat the flesh," all right, those bodies, those carcasses, "and drink blood. Ye shall eat the flesh of the mighty, and drink blood of the princes of the earth," referring to those carcasses, those bodies that the Lord referred to in Luke chapter 17 and in Matthew chapter 24. It said of rams, of lambs, and of goats, of bullock, and all them fatling of busham. And ye shall eat fat till ye be full, and drink blood till ye be drinking of my sacrifice which I have sacrificed for you. Thus ye shall be filled at my table with horses and chariots, with mighty men," all right, those bodies, those carcasses, "and with all men of war, saith the Lord power." Saith the Lord power. So that's what it's referring to in Luke chapter 17 and Matthew chapter 24. So now I'm going to jump up to verse 11 to show you that place. All right, that place. So this is Ezekiel 39 and 11. And it says, "And it shall come to pass in that day, will I give unto Gog a place," Gog referring to the nations, starting with the Edomites and the rest of the nations that's going to come together to fight against the Lord. It says that I will give unto Gog a place there of graves in Israel. So that's the place. All right, what's referred to in Revelation chapter 12 and verse 14. That's the place. All right, where the woman was taken. All right, it's not referring to America. So it says, "And it shall come to pass in that day that I will give unto Gog a place there of graves," going into those carcasses in Israel. Okay, so that's the place, man. "The valley of the passengers on the east of the sea, and it shall stop the noses of the passengers," those carcasses, all right, those dead bodies, "and there shall they be buried, Gog and all his multitude," Gog and all his multitude, "and they shall call it the valley of Hamagog." So that's the place. So when you go back to the book of Revelations, chapter 12 and verse 14, it says, and unto the woman and to the elect of Israel were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly. And we know that's referring to the angels, all right, according to the book of Luke, all right. And we know Matthew's chapter 24 and verse 31, the Lord has said he's going to send his angels, All right, to deliver his elect from the four winds of the earth. All right, so that those wings of a great eagle that she might fly is referring to the angels into the wilderness, into her place where she is nourished. All right, that wilderness, that place is referring to Israel according to the prophet Ezekiel chapter 39 and verse 11. That's the place where she is nourished. Nourished by who? Nourished by the Lord. Because when you go, let's see, let's get another precept. Let's go back to the book of Ezekiel. And we're going to deal with that nourished. Ezekiel chapter 38. In verse 8. It says, after many days thou shalt be visited in the latter years. Thou shalt come into the land, referring to Gog and Magog, that is brought back from the sword and is gathered out of many people. That is gathered out of many people, referring to Matthew chapter 24 verse 31. The Lord says he's going to gather his elect from amongst all nations, from one end of heaven into the other. It says, against the mountains of Israel, which have been always waste, but is brought forth out of the nations, and they shall dwell safely, all of them. And they shall dwell safely, all of them. So this is an example of that woman being nourished. Okay? That woman being nourished. Okay? Nourished for a time and half time from the face of the serpent. All right? Which is Gog and Magog, which is the nations. All right? The beasts. Okay? So, now, let's see. I want to get another precept in Revelations chapter 20. We're going to deal with that time and a half time as well. So Revelation 20, let's see here. I believe it's verse 8. So it says, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. And they went up on the breadth of the earth and compassed the camp of the saints about, and the beloved city, which is referring to what I read in Ezekiel 39. And fire came down from the power out of heaven and devoured them. So let's get another precept in the book of Revelations. Let's go to the book of Revelations. But before I get that, let's stay in the book of Revelation and read Revelation 19 and 17. Revelation 19:17. And I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying to all the fowls that fly in the midst of heaven, come and gather yourselves together unto the supper of the great power, that ye may eat the flesh of kings, those carcasses, those bodies that Yahushua referred to in Luke, in the book of Luke and in the book of Matthew. So the flesh of kings and the flesh of captains and the flesh of the mighty men and the flesh of horses and of them that sat on them and the flesh of all men, both free and bond, both small and great. So it says, and I saw the beasts and the kings of the earth, and that's Gog and Magog, the beasts and the kings of the earth. That's going to come together, that's going to band together to fight against the elect. All right, after Luke 17:34 take place. Okay, after the elect is taken to that place where she's going to be nourished. Remember, they're going to dwell safely. All right? For a time and a half time. And I'm going to deal with that also. So it says, and I saw the beasts and the kings of the earth and their armies, Gog and Magog, gathered together to make war against him that sat on the horse, against the Lord and his elect. Okay? And against his army. So basically that's the point on that. So now I want to go back to the Revelation 12 and 14. Read that again and deal with that time and a half time. So this is Revelation 12 and 14. It says, and to the woman, to the elect, all right, those that was taken, not the ones that was left, all right, were given 2 wings of a great eagle that she might fly. And we know, according to the book of Psalms and according to the other translations, that those angels, all right, those angels, that's what these wings of a great eagle, and that's how you fly, okay? Into the wilderness. Now we know, according to what Ezekiel 39 and verse 11, that the wilderness, that place that this woman is going, that the elect is going to be taken, is referring to the land of Israel, and to her place where she is nourished, And we know, according to Ezekiel 38 and verse 8, that's referring to Israel, basically dwelling safely, all right, dwelling safely in that time, okay. So it says, for a time and times and half times from the face of the serpent. So now I want to get another precept and stay in the book of Revelations, Revelations chapter 11, and I start at verse 3. And it says, and I will give power unto my 2 witnesses, and that's an example of those who was taken, being nourished, all right, being nourished from the face of the serpent, all right. So it says, and I will give power unto my 2 witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,203 score days, clothed in sackcloth. Now that 1,203 score represents 1,260 days, which is the time and half times. All right, when you do the math, it adds up to 3.5 years. Okay, so that 1,203 score, meaning 1,260 days. All right, that's an example of that woman being nourished, all right, from the face of the serpent for a time and half times. These are the 2 olive trees, the elect, those that was taken by the angels in Luke 17, and the 2 candlesticks standing before the power of the earth. And if any man will hurt them, fire proceedeth out of their mouth and devoureth their enemies. All right, devoureth their enemies. And this is going to take place in Armageddon. All right, in the land of Israel. Because when you do your research on Armageddon, it's referring to a place and not a event. All right, Armageddon is a place in Israel north of Manasseh. Okay, so that's the place. Okay, so it says, and devour their enemies, and if any man will hurt them, he must in this manner be killed. And that's an example of them being nourished in that place, which is Israel, from the face of the serpent. All right, for that what? Time and a half time, that 1,203 score days. Reading on, these have power to shed heaven, that it rain not in the days of their prophecy, and have power over the waters to turn them into blood, and to smite the earth with all plagues as often as they will. All right, So reading on. And when they have finished their testimony, the beast that ascended out of the bottomless pit, and I went into the bottomless pit in the previous video. As we know, the bottomless pit is basically the Lord's judgment. All right, his war chest. Okay, meaning his because this beast, all right, which is a part of the Lord's judgment, is in that war chest as well. That's the same sword, okay, that the red horse represents in Revelation chapter 6, that was sent forth by Yahweh Shai, all right, sent forth by him on the white horse, all right. This is part of his war chest, man. Okay, it's that this is the red horse. This beast symbolizes that the sword, man. All right. So it says, out of the bottomless pit, and shall make war against them, and shall overcome them, and shall kill them. All right, and shall kill them after the time and a half time, after the 1,203 score days. Let's prove that. And their dead bodies shall lie in the streets of that great city. And we know what the great city is referring to, according to what the book of Ezekiel chapter 39, according to Revelation chapter 20, verse 9. That place is referring to Israel, the same place where they're going to be taken, according to the book of Luke and the book of Matthew. All right. Remember, it says wherever the eagles is gathered, wherever the body is, the carcasses is, that's where the eagles will be gathered. And we know the carcasses are going to be gathered in Israel. All right, for that great sacrifice of the Lord. That's where they're going to eat the flesh of kings. All right, in the land of Israel. All right, so it says, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where this is a main point right here, where also our Lord was crucified. And we know the Lord was crucified in the land of Israel. Okay, so let's read on. And they of the people and kindreds and tongues and nations shall see their dead bodies 3 days and a half, and shall not suffer to put their bodies to be put in graves. And they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them, and make merry, and shall send gifts one to another, because these two prophets, the elect of Israel, tormented them that dwell on the earth. Verse 11, which is the point. And after 3 days and a half, after the 1,203 score days, after 3 days and a half, after that time and a half time, the spirit of life from the power entered of the power entered into them, and they stood upon their feet, and great fear fell upon them which saw them. Okay, so now let's go back to the book of Revelation chapter 12, pick up at 14, and read down without any private interpretation. So it says, and to the woman, and to the elect of Israel, the righteous, those who are going to be delivered, who's going to take part in that first resurrection, were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly. And we know that's referring to the angels. All right. Into the wilderness. We know the wilderness, and into her place where she is nourished. We know that place is referring to the land of Israel. Okay. According to the precepts, wherever the carcass is, that's where the eagles are going to be gathered. Okay. For that great sacrifice. According to Ezekiel 39 and 11, that place is referring to the land of Israel, where she is nourished, All right. Remember Ezekiel 38 and 8. All right. Where those who was taken is going to dwell safely. All right. Nourished by the Lord. All right. According to Revelation 11, they're going to receive power. All right. From the Lord. All right. That's an example of them being nourished for a time and a times and half time, for 3.5 days, for that 1,203 score days. All right. Which represents the 42 months. It says from the face of the serpent. From the face of the serpent, from Gog and Magog. Reading on verse 15, and the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. And that's an example of Gog and Magog coming up against the Israelites. Let's give you an example of what that's referring to. Let's go back to the book of Ezekiel and show you an example of that beast casting that flood out of his mouth to cause that woman to be carried away. Let me show you what that's referring to. Salakia. Ezekiel chapter 38. And let's see. Verse 38. And I'll pick up at 9. It says, thou shalt ascend and come like a storm, and come like a storm. Thou shalt be like a cloud to cover the land of Israel, thou and all thy bands, Gog and Magog, all right, the beasts and the kings of the earth, and many people with thee. Thus saith the Lord power, it shall also come to pass, that at that time shall things come into thy mind, and thou shalt think an evil thought, and thou shalt say, I will go up to the land of unwalled villages, and I will go to them that are at rest, those who are nourished from the face of the serpent. Okay? To them that are at rest, that dwell safely. That's another example of them being nourished, all right, in that place. And we know that place is referring to the land of Israel. All of them dwelling without walls and having neither bars nor gates, to take a spoil and to take a prey, and to turn thy hand upon the desolate places that are now inhabited, and upon the people that are gathered out of the nations which have gotten cattle and goods, that dwell in the midst of the land. So this is an example, all right, of that flood. Okay? So now let's go back. Let's see. To the book of Revelations. Chapter 12. And verse 14. And we're going to pick up at 15. It says, and the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war. This is what it's referring to. And went to make war with the remnant. That's a key point, the remnant. Because remember Luke 17, one was taken and the other was left. Remember Revelation 11 is referring to the two witnesses, the elect, man, the righteous of Israel. This is not referring to the whole nation of Israel. It's not referring to America. All right, this is not history. This is prophecy. So it says, and the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of the Heavenly Father and have the testimony of Yahushua. And those are the ones that's being taken in the book of Luke. All right. So basically that's the point. I hope you brothers was edified. And with that, I'm going to say shalom.